Hey guys, you're watching Phone Arena's in-depth video review of the T-Mobile myTouch 3G Slide, which is available right now through T-Mobile for the price of $179.99 on contract. Some say that this is the successor to the T-Mobile G1, the original Android-powered smartphone, but in fact, it's just another device in the myTouch line of handsets. So we saw that one actually be the second device released in the States that sported Android, but this one here is just slightly different just because of its slide-out QWERTY keyboard. We've seen HTC craft some stellar-looking industrial design handsets in the past, but for the myTouch 3G Slide, it's somewhat of a departure just because it's rather bulky, to tell you the truth. It comes in at 0.6 inches thick. It has somewhat of a chin that's seen on the original myTouch 3G and also the G1, but this handset is fairly heavy too, even though it uses mostly plastic. We'd imagine if you drop this, it would probably be some damage to it just because of the weight, and when you put it in your pockets, it definitely does stand out. The myTouch 3G Slide sports a 3.4-inch touchscreen display which has HVGA resolution, 320 by 480, and support for 262,000 colors. Although it does a good job of being viewable in outdoor conditions and direct sunlight, you have to really look close just because text is a little bit small on the smaller size. And on top of that, colors did look somewhat washed out, but thankfully it is very responsive. Right below the touchscreen, you have your physical buttons. They're flush to the surface, kind of small, and really they have this stiff feel to them. Same thing applies to the optical pad, which you can use to navigate it and press down to make a selection. The G here, the G button, or it's the Genius button, it's used for a specific app, which we'll tell you about later. As far as the other buttons goes on the handset, on the left-hand side, you have the volume rocker, pretty stiff. Same thing as the two-level shutter key on the right-hand side. On the top, you have the power button, 3.5mm headset jack, and on the back, you have the 5-megapixel camera with flash, LED flash, and when you remove the back cover, it gives you access to the battery, SIM card slot, and micro SD card slot. There's a 600 MHz ARM11 processor under the hood on the myTouch 3G Slide, and it's actually Android 2.1 with a slightly modified version of Sense, but it has all the elements we love about it. Instead of 7 home screens, you're only presented with 5, but you fill them up with all your different widgets and icons, and include stuff like FriendStream, which you could actually update your social networking accounts such as Facebook, MySpace, and Twitter. The apps menu has a slight different look to it with these grid-like icons with the square bubble around it, but we find the experience to be somewhat satisfactory. There's a good amount of inputting methods you can rely on the myTouch 3G Slide. As a default, you have a swipe here, so if you're familiar with its process, you could use that. If not, you could use other input methods such as the stock Android keyboard or drag and dictation, which is basically voice recognition. And if not, you could always put it in landscape to give you a little bit of well-sized on-screen keyboard. And of course, you could always resort to using the physical one if you'd rather do that. The web browsing experience on the myTouch 3G Slide is pretty much what you expect out of other Android-powered handsets. You can just double tap to zoom in, it loads pages fairly quickly, and even though text might be small for an HVGA resolution, you can zoom in with pinch gestures to resize the text, and it's fairly responsive, very fluid, and has some elements like flashlight enabled, so it gives you some of that true desktop-like experience. You've got the HTC music player, and it's pretty much does a decent job as far as presentation goes when you're playing music. But when it comes to audio quality from the speaker, it did present us with a satisfactory volume. It did produce some sharp tones when you have it set to the loudest volume, but it lacked a little bit of serious power to give it some full-bodied sounds. If you're going to be watching videos in the myTouch 3G Slide, you're pretty much going to be happy with the overall performance of it. There's no any indication of any lag or slowdown, and the experience is pretty much fluid. Now when you press the Genius button, it presents you with this special interface that allows you to accomplish some tasks like calling someone, sending a text, searching the web, and even find businesses. It has some keywords such as like where am I, and it'll open up the Google Maps program to give you your exact GPS location. It's nice, but basically it's Google Voice Search at its core. Now what makes this device different from the other myTouch 3G handsets is the fact that it offers a physical QWERTY keyboard. It has this pretty good snappy mechanism to it. Buttons are rather on the smaller size, not the best out of HTC's designs in the past, and they're slightly raised from the surface, decent spacing too. But the fact is that it has a soft response when you press with it. And on top of that, you kind of get confused when you're typing away just because the numbers, the numerical numbers are also the same size as the characters, so you have a tendency to actually get mixed up while you're typing. Photo quality from the myTouch 3G Slide's 5-megapixel autofocus camera is acceptable. All you do is just simply touch the screen to focus and press the dedicated shutter key to actually take the shots. Outdoor conditions, there's pretty good detail, but colors look somewhat darker. Indoor shots though, even with the flash, it came out too overexposed, but it should be more than adequate for most people out there. You'll be able to take VGA video 640 by 480 on the myTouch 3G slide, and actually has a capture rate of 27 frames per second. Audio from the recordings sound pretty accurate. It might not be the best quality out there or the most detailed, but to tell you the truth, it's more than adequate for most people out there. There was some faint static noise that we could hear on our end when we were talking with someone else, and it's especially noticeable when you have complete dead silence. Thankfully though, callers did say that our voice did sound natural and clear on their end. When we switched over to using the speakerphone though, voices did sound muffled on our end, but they're strong enough to make out our conversation still. We did notice sometimes that the signal strengths tend to fluctuate in our area here, but thankfully though, we didn't lose any drop calls. When it came to battery life, we set the handset to automatic brightness, and we managed to get a full working day's use out of it, roughly 10 hours, but by the time we got to bed, it's pretty much going to require charge. But for a handset like this, usually 1 day is more than adequate. Now, even though the myTouch 3G slide brings on the Sense UI, which we love, the overall feel to the handset and appeal is just somewhat lacking. Even though it does sport a physical QWERTY key, we weren't really happy about the experience on typing on the keyboard itself. When compared to other handsets out there, it's extremely bulky, making it one of the heavier handsets out there for Android. And when you throw in the fact that it's going for $179.99 on contract, it pretty much pushes it to the premium end of the spectrum. At that price, you could probably get away with something like the Samsung Vibrant, which recently launched, just have a slightly better handset overall. Or even if you prefer a physical keyboard, something like the Motorola Click. So if you'd like to learn more about this handset, or for all the latest cell phone reviews, news, specs, and information, you can check us out at phonearena.com.